Intermediate Plan of Action. 2. Implement the transition plan crafted by our cabinet technocracy.
Pagpapatupad ng transition plan na binalangkas ng mga kabinete.
Ano po ba ang transition plan ninyo sa federal government?
Ano po ba ang mga katangian ng federal government?
Ang transition plan ay bubuuin ng mga mapipiling kabinete. Sila ang gagawa ng mga hakbangin upang maitawid ang lumang sistemang unitary government sa federal government, na naayon sa binalangkas at mapagtitibay na saligang batas o konstitusyon. Mga katangian ng federal na gobyerno. A. Buwis o kapakinabangan. B. Pamamahagi ng kapangyarihan at mga sangay ng pamahalaan, lehislatura, ehekutibo, hudikatura. C. Malayang sistema ng hukuman. D. Paghahati-hati ng desentralisasyon. A. Buwis. Kapakinabangan. Ang pamahalaan ay marapat na may sariling pinagkukuhanan ng kita at hindi umaasa sa ibang pondo. Ang pamahalaang federal ay may kapangyarihang magpataw at mangolekta ng mga buwis, obligasyon, at mga ipinataw na bayarin, maliban sa mga buwis na itinalaga sa federal na rehiyon. Isa. Ang federal na rehiyon ay may kapangyarihang magpataw at mangolekta ng mga buwis, lisensya at bayarin sa mga sumusunod. A. Real property tax. B. Franchise tax. C. Estate tax. D. Road users tax. Donors tax. E. Vehicle registration fees. F. Documentary stamp tax. G. Professional tax. H. Games and amusement tax. I. Environmental tax, pollution tax, and similar taxes. J. Transport franchise fees. And K. Local taxes and other taxes which may be granted by federal law. 1. Ang federal na pamahalaan at ang federal na rehiyon ay titiyakin na ang pagpataw ng buwis ay pantay-pantay at pare-pareho sa lahat. Ang dobleng pagbubuwis ay hindi pinahihintulutan. 2. Ang federal na rehiyon ay tatanggap ng hindi bababa sa 50% bahagi, 50% ng lahat ng nakolektang income taxes, excise taxes, value-added tax, and customs duties, ang lahat ay pantay-pantay na paghahatian ng mga federal na rehiyon. 3. Ang federal na rehiyon ay may karapatan sa ika-50% bahagi, 50% ng lahat ng kinita na nagmula sa pagmimina, paggagalugad at paggamit ng likas na yaman ng kanilang nasasakupan. Mga katangian ng federal na gobyerno. B. Sangay ng kapangyarihan. Mga kapangyarihan ng mga sangay ng pamahalaan, lehislatura, ehekutibo, hudikatura. Ang ehekutibo. Ang kapangyarihan ng ehekutibo ng Republikang Federal ay ibinibigay sa Pangulo. Mayroon din na pangalawang Pangulo na may kahintulad na kwalipikasyon at termino na gaya sa Pangulo. Ang pangalawang Pangulo ay itatalagang kasapi ng kabinete.
Countries come in all shapes and sizes. They are made up of many different types of people from many different backgrounds. How do we ensure that all these diverse people get sufficient political representation? One solution is a political system called federalism. Only 30 of the world's 195 countries are federations. Yet, together these 30 countries represent 40% of the world's population. In other words, almost half the world's people are governed under a federal political system. But what exactly is federalism? And why might a country consider adopting a federal system? The answer is that federalism provides a practical way for groups of people who have some things in common, but also some important differences, to live together. They do this by sharing powers over the things they have in common, like international trade, for example. At the same time, these groups maintain some level of self-rule over those things that concern their own interests. For example, education, primary health care, and broadcasting. As a response to these challenges of size and diversity, federalism can take various forms. And since no single country is exactly like another, no federal system is exactly alike either. Nevertheless, federalism does have some distinct defining characteristics which make it different from other forms of decentralization. The first characteristic is that the federal systems have at least two levels of government. There is a central level of government, also sometimes known as the federal or union level, which governs the entire country in relation to issues of importance to everyone. This usually means matters like defence, the armed forces, foreign policy, trade, citizenship, macroeconomic policy, and national infrastructure like ports and airports. The second level of government operates in the states, regions, provinces, or other entities into which the country is divided. Each of these has control over certain types of policy and legislation, usually of immediate relevance to its own people. This often includes delivery of services such as roads and public health services, and issues of cultural significance, like education and broadcasting. These are, of course, just typical examples. The level of decentralization and the exact distribution of powers and responsibilities varies greatly between federations, depending on their needs and circumstances. In some federal systems, there are powers which do not belong exclusively to either level of government, but are shared between them. In India, for example, both the Indian Parliament and the state legislatures can pass laws on criminal justice and social and economic planning. But if there is incompatibility between them, the central level of legislation prevails. A second characteristic of federalism is that it provides processes and mechanisms by which the different states, provinces, or regions of the federation can be included in decision-making at the central or union level. Normally, this takes the form of an upper house of parliament or senate, in which these states, provinces, or regions are represented. The third characteristic is that in federal systems, the powers and responsibilities of the different levels of government are enshrined in a constitution. This protects the federal agreement from being easily changed. In many federations, the states, regions, or provinces have a veto over constitutional changes, so that neither level of government can unilaterally strip the other of its powers. To protect the federal arrangement, the Constitution needs to include an impartial judicial body, such as a Supreme Court or Constitutional Court, which enforces that agreement in a fair and balanced way. At its heart, federalism is a constitutional agreement that enables different communities of people who live in different territories all live together in one country. This agreement recognises that the country is better off united, while at the same time protecting the autonomy and rights of its diverse people.
Maraming pamilya ang nahihirapan sa araw-araw. Maraming batas ang nahihirapang ipas. Maraming proyekto ang bansa na nahihirapang mabuo. Bawat mamamayan ay nahihirapan sa kalagayan ng bansa. Pero kapag federalismo ang inangat, bawat pamilya ay aangat. Buong bansa sama-sama aangat. Faisal Mangondato for President.
Salamat sa